morning. Faced with the prospect of losing millions of dollars in commissions, the real estate industry plans to continue the fight on rental commissions with the New York state legislators. And if that isn't enough, the Real Estate Board of New York is now requiring sellers to direct pay buyers' agents, and that starts January 1st. I would like to welcome my listeners in the United States and all around the world. I am Vince Rocco, and this is Talking New York Real Estate. At this hour, the Real Estate Board of New York is implementing new buyer agent commission rules as the industry faces a backlash nationwide. The provision will prohibit listing brokers from paying buyers agents and will instead require sellers to pay them directly. This new rule also requires listing agreements to clearly outline the seller's offer of compensation to the buyer's agents. The new rule, beginning January 1st, is one of the 5 revisions coming to the Universal Co-Brokerage Agreement, which governs REBNY and the residential listing service. Also, a local city council member has reopened the rental commissions debate and believes that whomever hires an agent should pay that agent. This was defeated in 2020 and is now back again. Plus, keeping a positive mindset is crucial in this business of real estate. I'm going to ask the panel today what their technique is to stay cool and calm. Can we stay cool and calm? We will have all that and so much more as Talking New York Real Estate gets underway on this Tuesday morning. In the news this morning, the Hampton streak of year-over-year declines in contract signings for home purchases grew longer in October. This according to Miller Samuel's monthly report. Contract signings on the North Fork have also declined since Labor Day as listings in Long Island's weekend home markets remain low. Miller says there just isn't product to sell. The market is still stuck, and that is challenging transaction volume on top of interest rates reducing affordability. And dreams really do come true, especially if you are a developer whose dream is to own a 120-year-old castle on the Upper West Side in Manhattan. The Walt Disney Company, or ABC, which is consolidating offices into its new Hudson Square headquarters, is looking to sell the landmark First Battery Armory building on the Upper West Side. The media company is looking to get around $30 million for that fortress-style property, and that's located at 56 West 66th Street, all this according to The Real Deal. And Christie's International Real Estate Group is adding its New York City push with a foray into new development. The residential brokerage has partnered with Ravani Development Marketing in what the firm said is a bid to pair Shlomi Ravani's connections with developers and Christie's global brand recognition for an enticing pitch as competition heats up for the dwindling supply. Ravani is also joining Christie's as Chief Strategy Officer, where he will advise on business development, brand growth, expansion, and agent recruitment. And construction has begun on an all-electric residential building in downtown Brooklyn that includes 324 apartments and academic space for Long Island University. RXR on Monday broke ground on the 30-story tower at 89 DeKalb Avenue, which is set to be one of the developer's most sustainable projects as the building is fully electric, features a smart glass facade system, and has electric vehicle charging stations. And Rudy Giuliani was hoping to score a fast buyer for his New York City apartment in hopes for some fast cash, but it appears the former mayor is having some trouble. Giuliani just slashed a whopping $400,000 off the asking price of his ritzy Manhattan co-op. According to the Post, the luxury residence at 45 East 66th Street was initially listed for a cool $6.5 million over the summer. The price tag is now $6.1 million, and records reveal that Giuliani acquired this 3-bedroom, 3-bath corner unit in 2002 for $4.8 million. And finally, the 2023 Rockefeller Center Christmas tree has officially been selected. The 80-foot-tall Norway spruce comes from Vestal, a suburb of Binghamton, and will be cut down Thursday and arrive at Rock Center on Saturday, November 11th. And the world-famous tree is decorated with thousands of sparkling lights and crowned with its star. The annual tree lighting ceremony will take place on Wednesday, November 29th. Okay, here we go. With me today are Bess Freedman, CEO from Brown Harris Stevens, John Harrison, Core, and Peter Graubard from Graubard and Blumenfield Attorneys. So we started the show, you heard the intro. Agents right now are concerned about all the talk about the commission changes, possible commission changes, whether they're rental commissions, whether they're now sale commissions for the buy side. We're going to try and dig into all of that today because it is a very important topic. Bess, I want to start with you. The recent fight in New York State over rental commissions involves changes to the way the real estate agents are compensated for services in the rental transaction. Can you talk to the proposed changes that the city council members are chatting about. And let's remember, this goes back to 2019, 2020. It was knocked down, but yet it's back again. So what's the deal with this?
I think what my understanding is what they're trying to propose is that they shift the weight to the landlord, or whoever hires the agent has to pay for the rental fees. And so I think they're trying to do that to try to lessen the cost of rent. That must be why they're doing it. Why else would they do it? But I think what it will do is make things much more expensive. I think it will have the opposite effect. And also, it will create a lot of opaqueness for the consumer, because if you're the landlord and you're thinking you hire an agent, you have to pay that agent, then you're going to make the rent even higher to cover that cost, or maybe you're not going to hire an agent, and so then the consumer is not going to know what is a real listing, what isn't. I think how we have the system set up today gives a lot of freedom to landlords and to agents, and the system works well, so I don't really understand why they keep going back at this. I think that it functions well, and the consumer is served really well this way. There's also what we have, agency disclosure, which lets you know who works for who gets paid, and all that. So I don't know. I think that the legislature is confused, and it's frustrating because we have to keep going back and fighting for the things that are right. I don't know if you guys.
Well, one of the things I'm concerned about is the fact that we went through all this 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, okay? And so the Department of State, pulled back because Rebney sued them and won. Now all of a sudden it's back again. So, this one council member here in New York is pushing it again. I'm not quite sure what or why he's doing this again when it really was not a popular trend 3 years ago.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
People have to fight for something, especially if you are elected or if you have mobilized yourself into a particular position. And my concern is that sometimes the things that people are fighting for have no real effect, but they can say, you know what? Look, I made this thing happen. But the real question is, how does that really change for the consumer? I'm all about creating things that challenge us. I love it when a client asks me about my commission so that I have to defend it because I want to be challenged. If I'm not providing value, then I shouldn't be charging for it. But I think what happens is, just as you mentioned, if the landlord is going to add the more commissions into the rent, then the new base rent is going to be higher.
Right.
So then subsequent renewals will be based on a higher base rent. And that's where that gets lost. Like, that's not going to be highlighted as much.
Well, it's not going to be highlighted as much, but people on the renter side, right, people going out there finding apartments, they have to understand that is going to happen. Because if a landlord now has to pay the agent, he's going to put it in the rent. I mean, that's like a given, correct?
Yeah, I mean, either that or either way, it's going to wind up in the rent, right? Because either the landlord...
nobody wants to pay a commission, especially on the rental side. I've been hearing this for 21 years. But bottom line is...
either the landlord's going to pay the agent or the landlord's going to bring it in-house and hire staff to handle it in-house, which will increase their costs, and then, of course, it will wind up in the rent. Plus, it will make for a much less efficient marketplace, and it will make it harder for buyers to find an apartment because an in-house agent, an in-house representative isn't going to be as available to show apartments, is going to work more on a 9-to-5 basis, isn't going to market the apartment properly, isn't going to be experts on fair housing laws. There are going to be lots of things that in-house employees for these big landlords are going to do a lot less efficiently and a lot less well than the brokerage community.
So it's an educational thing across the board, because I was going to ask you, how are agents going to adapt to this, right? Because I remember back 3 years ago, we were all sort of up in arms.
Everybody was. We were all at City Hall. Everybody's protesting.
I had a sign.
It was like 100 degrees that day, too.
Yes, it was.
I remember. I always remember when I'm schwitzing.
Yes, it was.
It was so hot. But everybody was showing up because...
it's true.
I think the narrative is just people are confused. I think if you ask the average consumer, they do not really understand how our system works.
That's right.
The portrayal of what real estate professionals do, I say it over and over because it's so true. And I work with thousands of agents, and I have friends that are agents at every firm, and I love our industry so much. I think we get portrayed in such a bad way, and it doesn't represent what is done. It's 7 days a week. It's a hustle. You only get paid for results. People are feeding their families, educating their kids. It's really a tough job. But what is out there and what it looks like on TV is not the reality. It's not reality TV.
Can you talk a little bit about that, though, Bess? Because I know you have strong opinions on that. I 1,000% agree with you. People watch these television programs and think that this is how we conduct ourselves in the field, right?
Right.
You know.
And I think that does such a disservice. Look, that is pure entertainment. I get people want to watch, some really gorgeous woman with no clothes on walk in with her hair done and pretending to sell property. That's interesting, and all the drama that they create that's manufactured. They don't want to watch somebody get photos of a listing and look at floor plans. They'd fall asleep. Nobody would want to watch what agents do all day because
What our real life jobs are all about,
Because the
right?
reality is that you're studying comps, you're on the phone a lot, you're busy doing stuff. So that's really it's really hard work, and they can't portray that because nobody would watch it. And so I get it, but they should make sure to say, this is entertainment. We're making a lot of this up. Imagine if a woman walked into a meeting with a bunch of men with her boobs out, a short skirt on, all this makeup on like she was going to the Oscars. You wouldn't know where to look. That's not professional. Nobody can act like that. It's over-sexualized. It's just not reality. You have to be taken seriously in a business world, and I think that is
reality TV.
Right, but it's not reality.
But it's not reality.
It's really
Not
on TV.
reality TV. And I listen, it's fun, it's entertaining. Selling Sunset. I mean, my daughter and I were watching that, and we were dying, laughing. I was getting frustrated. I was like, that is absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's just not reality, and it's frustrating because the consumer thinks, oh, they're a bunch of clowns. They get all this money. They have Rolls Royces. They fly in private jets. No, they don't. That's not what. I mean,
Well,
that's what's
real estate
frustrating.
agents have always been an easy target. You guys are one step higher on the ladder.
set ourselves
than
up.
lawyers.
I mean, because we're saying hey, here we are. We have to get our face out there.
But that's what's happening
But
here.
it gets taken that way.
Yeah, but that's what's
turns into
happening
the
here.
clown
This
show.
what's his name? Chai Ose.
Chai Ose, yeah.
Chai Ose
City council
is the
guy.
city councilman that's
He's trying. He's the one who's pursuing this.
And like you said
Bill.
earlier, he's using it to try and make a name for himself because real estate agents are an easy target. Rather than focus on the actual cost of why there's no affordable housing
But
being
that's
built.
not sexy, and
Right.
that takes too long.
Right. Yes.
If I have an office and I need to make sense of myself and my time, I need to make sure that sense is made within that 1 year. But in reality, all of the things that really matter, you can't get done in a single cycle term year. So I've got to find a way to make myself feel relevant.
But
And
going
so
back
that's
to-
how it happens.
That's
But going
right.
back to Bess's point, though, she's right in that people look at this stuff and make it reality. It's not
Of course.
real. We all know that. But I think that's why we get the reputation we get. I think that's why people struggle with, I have to pay you how much commission if I want to rent something or sell something? So they kind of look at us when I was running my own real estate firm for 4 years and we were interviewing agents to come in and work, they'd look at me across the desk. So I get a budget, right? And I get car service, and I get to, have all these
Hair and
grand
makeup, right? Okay, great.
Legitimately, I get car service so I can take. I said, you can have whatever you want as long as you're paying for it.
Right.
I said, I own this company, and I don't have that.
Of course,
Right,
but I
right.
think the other thing is we also have to acknowledge that, of course, there are some unprofessional real estate agents that are out there and do the wrong thing and aren't ethical.
100%.
Of course, there's a percentage of that. But the vast majority, the agents that I work with, the people that I know at other firms, they are working hard all the time. These are good people who are doing the right thing and are very professional and are educated and all of those things. And I just think it's unfortunate that that little piece is what people think we are.
On the rental
100%.
commission, I have what may become slightly unpopular position. I'm not opposed to saying that the landlord has to pay for the commissions. I'm an investor. I have rental property that I own in other states, and I pay the commission. I'm the one that pays. The problem is that it can't just be something that's done overnight. And when this was introduced, it was like, let's change it. All of these landlords would have been caught holding the bag. And so they would have had to have made the money up elsewhere. So I think if we're going to go that way, it has to be a very long path because if money's being paid for these services, it has to come from somewhere. And ultimately, it is coming from the renters. It's just that, so transparency, I'm a big fan of any type of transparency, but there's got to be a path to get there.
Just for the sake of the viewers and the listeners out there, explain to everybody what the commission structure is currently, who pays
Yeah.
what. Because, again, people hear these things, they kind of judge us the way they want to judge us, but they don't necessarily know how we work, right?
Well, so in New York City, we like to believe that we're sort of the center of the universe, and in many of ways, there's
Aren't
a lot.
we?
And yet, there are a lot of things that are very broken, and some of that is lack of transparency. What Vince was asking me to explain was when a renter is looking for an apartment in the city, there is a question as to whether or not they pay the brokerage commission versus the landlord. And whenever my team takes on a renter, we actually sit down and do a consultation on this because we want to lay out all the cards. We want to tell them exactly how this works. The answer is it depends. Some properties, the landlord is paying their broker to show, but then the tenant has to pay their own broker. Some properties, the landlord is paying their broker and the tenant's broker. And then in some properties, the tenant pays the entire commission. Whatever portion of the commission is being paid by any person, in essence and in theory, that could be negotiable, but the money is going to come from somewhere. So the answer to this is when you're working with your agent, just make sure that you understand how the whole fee structure works. It is a little messy, but it's not something that you can just do away with.
But doesn't the market dictate that? In other words, that might change over time. That
can absolutely change sometimes. When, like in COVID, when everybody was leaving the city, then landlords were trying to do everything they could to incentivize people to come back to the city. So they were offering concessions. They were not only paying for marketing fees, but they were also offering like free rent. They were offering other things. But then as droves of people returned, rents went to a record high. And so landlords realized, like, well, hang on a second. If people are really competing and willing to offer overprice, over the list price, then maybe I'll just back myself out of having to pay some of the brokerage fees and let the renters, the tenants that really want this apartment, they'll just take some of that rather than me lifting the rent up anymore. And so a lot of tenants that were doing this, they were choosing to move forward with those apartments, paying those fees, and they saw the benefit of it because they could pay a fee up front instead of amortizing the amount over the life of their entire tenancy. And so when you get into the math of it, a lot of people are saying, I would rather pay a little bit more upfront than to have it bumped into rent, which then becomes a permanent base rent that continues to climb through the years.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between the condo owner who buys it as an investment property and then rents it out, or the landlord who owns a building and has multiple units for rent on any day basis?
Scale. I mean, sure. It
seems to me like the individual owner would be a little more flexible in paying because I just feel like it would be easier for them to do that versus a landlord or property manager who owns the entire building, 100 units that he's renting on a regular basis. I don't know.
If I hire a chef to come in and cook for my family of 5, it's going to be one amount. If I decide, you know what, I want you to come in to cook for my family of 10, it's not necessarily going to be the double amount. So there's efficiency in a landlord that owns an entire building. Maybe they won't pay as much per unit. Maybe at that point it becomes more important just to hire somebody full time. If it's a lot of these big rental buildings, they have full-time leasing staff because it makes sense.
People, they have on-site.
Yeah.
Good point.
Bess, from a leadership position, do you see that this affects the bottom line or will or can affect the bottom line in the future if a lot of these policies get passed and whatever?
I mean, it's so hard to say at this point. I think we have a lot of momentum and there's a lot of strength in the agent community to get this, to get things steered in the right way like we did in 2019. And so it's hard to tell. I think there is value in having a real estate professional helping you whether you're renting or buying. We know that as a fact, particularly in New York City and other places in the country. So I'm not really so worried about that because I see the value of what real estate professionals do every day. And I think consumers who are educated know that and they realize it and they appreciate it, which is why we get so many positive responses and thank you letters and and referrals and so you wouldn't have that if it didn't work, and I believe it works and will continue to do so.
And all of this is really stemming from the political cachet of affordable housing, but the politicians are focused on the wrong things. They're choosing the brokerage community in an effort to change affordable housing rather than putting back in the 421A.
Right. Yeah. Extending the 421A.
Yeah,
exactly.
Changing zoning laws to allow residential development in commercial areas.
Right.
Not killing Amazon opening up a massive warehouse in Long Island City. So, there are lots of...
That's what I call ding dong central. That was not
so they're just... there's a disincentive for the development of low-income housing, and it really has nothing to do with who's paying commissions. They're focused on the wrong thing.
And they have this other thing, good cause eviction. This bill that is written is so ridiculous. It would be like universal rent control, which needs to be changed and modified. So there's so many other things that we should be focusing on.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, come back, and talk about the flip side of this commission debate on the buy side. Don't go anywhere. All right, so the flip side is the buy side, and what could be an attempt to get ahead of changes that may be coming to the real estate industry. REBNY announced recently major changes to the way sellers are going to pay commissions. Starting January 1st, as I said in the opening, REBNY rules will prevent listing brokers from paying a buyer's agent and instead will require sellers to pay the commissions directly. The rule will require listing agreements to clearly outline the seller's offer of compensation to the buyer's agent. I mean, I get the hives just reading that because I can only just imagine what this can be. Now, my simple mind sometimes says, but we as agents, right? I work at Brown Harris Stevens, so we as agent really haven't paid the buy side directly. At a closing table, the seller makes a check to the buyer's agent and makes a check to the seller's agent. So again, my simple mind.
I've always seen it that way.
Yeah.
My simple mind, right?
It's not really a big. I mean, it sounds like it's a lot, but it's really
So
not.
then-
All it's going to do is give more consumer confidence. You're not changing what you do as a listing agent.
But the fear, though, is
Yeah.
that what the sellers eventually will turn this into is, well, so you're telling me 3% to you and 3% to the buyer agent, 6% or 5%, whatever you negotiate.
It is, yeah.
But what if I only want to pay the buy side 2%, and then you 3%?
I mean, that's
how
how
do
you
you
get
how
a
do you
great
deal with that?
professional comes in and you have to kind of explain how it works and why. Look, the majority of our deals, 90%, are done with another agent on the other side.
Absolutely.
The system works the
100%.
best as collaborators, community, working together. I mean, 20-something years ago in Brooklyn, there was no co-broking, and it was a nightmare. It hurts the seller's agent, and it hurts the seller in particular. You want to inspire everyone in the brokerage community to bring their buyers, and that's why you want to incite sort of cooperation versus cutting people off and not getting people to come in. So I don't think the way that we're set up, it works, which is why we don't want to mess with a system that already works really well. It's efficient. And nothing is written in stone. You can negotiate the commissions. It doesn't have to be this percent. You talk to yourselves and you explain, look, this is why we want to bring people in. This is why we earn it. We're paying for the marketing, the floor plans, the showings. We're doing videos. We're bringing people in. We're doing these open houses. Sometimes it's flowers. Sometimes it's cleaning the windows. We add value. We get a higher price for sellers. It's just a fact. It's an observable fact. And so, look, you can cut corners, but if you're selling your property, you want it done right, you hire a professional. You don't do it yourself. You have a day job. That's why you want to work with somebody who knows what they're doing.
Right.
But what I'm trying to wrap my head around also is why is REBNY trying to implement these changes when, as you just said, the system's not broken.
They're
from
getting
that
ahead
perspective.
of because of this NAR ruling.
That's exactly right.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. But
They
go ahead.
want to look like, okay, you know what? We're going to make this official. This is the thing. And then it's something they can say, hey, look, we made this new policy. And in order to fight for transparency, sellers will now pay buyers, brokers directly, even though we've already been doing
That's
all
right.
of my deals.
It's not so much about
It's a pillar to
paying
stand
the
on.
buyer's broker directly. It's about negotiating the buyer's split with the buyer's broker directly.
But that's
so-
what I'm getting concerned about, negotiating that split with the buyer's broker.
But here's
because
the thing.
after a point, if the buyer's agent says, I'm only going to get 1.5 or 2, when I used to get 3 or minimum 2.5, that could be a problem.
Yeah, but look, no one knows how it's going to play out and what's really going to
I get
happen.
it.
But sellers still want to drive the most traffic to their apartment.
right.
They're not
Right.
stupid. So they're not necessarily going to say, oh, well, I have the opportunity to pay the buyer's broker half of what I'm paying the seller's broker. They know they're not going to get as much traffic to the apartment. It's going to affect the price that they get when they sell. So I can't imagine that any sophisticated seller, at least, or seller, with a brain is going to say, well, why would I want to reduce the pool of buyers that are coming to see my apartment by offering their agents less money? It doesn't make sense.
You have to hope that you get the seller that appreciates that or understands that. In negotiating, when I'm trying to negotiate with a seller, even when they want to go down to 5%, which I don't want, I say to them the same thing. Listen, you're going to reduce the amount of people who are coming here because buyer's agents, when searching, are looking at a reduced commission, and they'll say, you know what, I'll pass on that.
They shouldn't do
and I'll
that,
show
though.
everything else.
That is completely wrong, because their goal is to always serve their client. And if there's a
That's
property, the commission should be separate. You're always putting your client's interest first, the property first, whatever the commission is. And a mindset like that is incorrect. It needs to be fixed.
You are
That's
totally right. However, that mindset would become stronger when now it's a half a point offered to the buyer's broker. And then the buyer's broker says, you know what, this is what we charge. We charge whatever it is. I'm going to make it up, X percent to work with you as a buyer. A lot of times that will come from the selling side. Sometimes it won't. The buyer might say, you know what, don't show me anything where I'm going to have to pay commission. Like, okay.
That's
so
right.
then that's going to rule out this.
Right, but if the buyer really wants that apartment, the way the offer will be made is we're offering you X dollars, and the buyer's broker's commission has to be 3% or 2.5% or whatever it is, which is more than what you've
A lot of
offered.
boards prohibit that. A lot of boards make it illegal as the buyer to say, I'm going to make this offer subject to a change in commission. There are a lot of real estate boards, not in New York, that make it illegal to even couple anything about commission at all, and it becomes an offense that the real estate agent can get in trouble for. Why? Well, because it's a fight for protection of transparency. And so if we really want transparency, then why not, this rule about co-broking has been around for 100 years.
Right.
And it's really to create transparency.
That's right.
Because then people know, like, I know what the commission split's going to be. So we can
Correct.
either fight for transparency or
Correct.
against it, but we can't do both in the same breath.
That's right. And it works that way. The system works how it's set up. And I'm not as worried as you are, Vincent. I get, with sellers, but I think that if you explain it, sellers, as you said, sophisticated sellers, they understand that it works and it brings them a higher price. And agents who are good and know to do the right thing are not going to get caught up in all of that stuff. They're just going to keep focused on their clients and property and communicating and being fair and showing up that way every day. And that's what great agents do, and they thrive. And that's what you do.
I was just going to say the same thing. It really is going to depend on us, the agent, to get out there and do what we've always done, explain what we need to explain, keep that professionalism, and move forward. Bess, give me your thoughts on the recent decision with the National Association of Realtors that came down this past week. I mean, that was a major
It was
news
a
item.
major look. It's a case that happened in Missouri, so I don't. I was a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer anymore. I'll let Peter talk about that stuff. But I think obviously they're appealing.
Yeah.
And I think it appears, a lot of this. I mean. That it's about money. It's a money grab in a way. And I don't know what the end result will be, but I do think, unfortunately, there was an article in the Journal a few weeks ago where this woman wrote this op-ed where she referred to NAR as a cartel. And then she said buyers brokers are going to have to find a new line of work because they serve little to no value. And I was like, how does she know that? Why would she say that about like millions of people? I just think there's a lot more to come out about this, and I think we're going to have to see where it goes. But I think it's an unfair portrayal to say it's a cartel. You don't have to hire these people. You can do what you want to do. You're not forced into it. But I don't know. I'll let the others talk about it.
Peter, our resident attorney here.
The way I see it is whether or not there was merit to the lawsuit is really not relevant. What's relevant is the class action lawyer is going to make
I was going to ask
$100 million.
I was going to say to him, and how much is your cut? Because I was on TV with him debating.
Yeah, so the class action lawyers are going to make a fortune, and each homeowner involved in this lawsuit is going to make $1,000.
Yeah.
From the result of this.
That's such a good point.
This lawsuit, and so like a lot of class action lawsuits, it's a novel theory that a class action attorney clings on to, and he or she is really the one making out
Money
the most.
grab, people. Money grab.
So and a lot of the substance of the lawsuit has the word in it, inflated. And what they're talking about is that it's unfair that people have to pay this inflated commission rate. And I think it's really curious that that's the case and that NAR is being referred to as like a cartel. Is that coming from the perspective, would that same perspective be applied towards unions? Would that same perspective be applied towards
Interesting.
Good point.
general associate? I mean, would that same perspective be applied towards like any taxes that exist? If we're looking at what are you getting for the money that's spent? I mean, real estate agents, I know we can certainly show you exactly where that money goes, but I mean, if it's looking for unnecessary fees, there are a lot of other things out there that we can go after that have nothing to do with this actual trade of value.
Well, as you said before, several of you said before, we're targets. We're always targets. This profession, as much as I love it and dedicated to it and can't imagine doing anything else, no, I mean that sincerely, we're targets. And people are always putting their hands in our pocket. For what reason? You know, you go to the dentist, you don't fight with the dentist. You go to the doctor, you go to the grocery store.
You don't fight with the lawyers.
You don't fight with the lawyers. But, you know, with us, it's always something. And I just don't understand why.
I think because we have this, there's a perception of unprofessionalism. Like people think that real estate agents are like used car salesmen or just looking to get their money.
I'm
they
not.
Don't care. Of course not. Nobody here is, but I think there is that sort of
I
idea of
agree.
like agents.
One
like,
rung above the lawyers.
Yes.
That's it.
Is it above?
You're above. You're above the
One
lawyers.
rung above.
I
I
always
don't know.
hear
Down there.
Yeah.
Truly. I don't know. Anyway, real estate, you know, we're not going to solve world hunger today on the whole commission.
We're not. Okay.
Well, I mean,
We
you
can
know,
try.
We can try. But more importantly, as we've been talking about, we are in a very high stress profession. I mean, every day is something else. You wake up in the morning and you have your day, you know, planned in your head. But I don't know about you all, but for me, sometimes what I have planned for that day goes completely in the other direction. Okay. How do you manage stress? I'm going to ask Bess this first. And to prevent it from affecting your personal life and your mindset. I mean, because we all approach our day with a certain mindset, and we all want to be happy and you know, good at what we do. But sometimes it gets a little cuckoo.
I think it's hard for everybody. Just life is messy. There's so much pulling on you, whether you have a family or not. One thing that I have done recently, Chris Pomeroy, who's downtown, who also teaches transcendental meditation. About a year ago, I did this whole class with him, and so I wake up and do that. I never thought, because I always tried to meditate, could never, like, my mind would get scattered, and I'd try the breathing. I did so many things, so many apps. I did the thing with him. It's many days. And I do it every day. Sometimes twice a day. It's been harder in the afternoons. It's 20 minutes first thing in the morning before the gym, before anything. And it does help to clear your mind, to keep you focused. It's not always perfect. I mean, some days are better than others, but it helps to clear your head. And obviously, physical exercise. I always say emotion comes from motion.
Yeah.
Moving your body. I love kickboxing. I have a trainer. I work out. I do all that stuff. And walking. I love walking the city streets of New York City.
Best thing in the world.
With music. It's just like there's nothing that makes me feel better in life than walking the streets of New York with music on. It's like it's a complete release.
And it's so different to do that here.
The city
than
is
anywhere
the
else.
best, man.
It's amazing to do that. Tell us about a typical day, again, for the viewers and listeners out there who don't necessarily understand what it is we do every day before we can get into trying to calm our minds. What is our day typically like?
So
as agents?
Yeah, no, as an agent, there is this constant possibility of feeling like you're putting out fires because when clients have needs, and they're very real needs, it's usually the client's most important need at that time. When you're dealing with somebody's housing or the significant portion of their entire net worth, those are very significant needs. So as an agent, if there is something I need to do to very quickly preempt a risk for a client or position my client so that they can be in the best chance to thrive in their world, then I have to be sort of ready to jump at a moment's notice. But at the same time, in order to keep my business strong, I can't just be in this fighter-hunter mentality. There's farming that takes place. There's keeping my mind filled with the study and the research of changes in the city, of nurturing clients, of keeping people updated, of following up with the person that closed last year to make sure that they got the renovations done. So the typical day can it can be a big mesh of all of this stuff. And so to further answer the typical day and also kind of connect to what you asked Bess, I think one of the best things that real estate agents can do to incorporate all of this is to do a lot of time blocking. To set up a time and say, this morning during this time, no matter how busy it gets, I'm going to take some time to reach out to my clients just to check in on them. Whatever fire I need to put out, at 10 o'clock, that's okay. But from 9 to 10, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call and check on people.
That's structure, and a lot of agents can't really conform to structure. I worked in corporate America for 20 years before I became an agent, so I react well to structure. So I totally agree with that. I can block out my time and say, I'm going to do this first thing in the morning, I'm going to do this next. It's easy for me. Actually, I can multitask, and the more I have to do, the better I get at all of it, right? But I can actually time block to get the day moving.
And sometimes you've
Because
got
just
a time
like these
block.
shows, I say, I don't like dead air. And I've been going on for 9 years, but I don't like dead air. And with all of you, there's no dead air. But it's the same in my head, as I'm going through my day. I don't want any downtime unless I want that downtime.
That's right.
Or it's planned for that downtime.
Well, and it's not like my kids are, their schedule is insane from school to basketball. Then my kids are in water polo. Like their schedule is insane.
Water polo.
Yeah, I know. I never knew a human that played water polo. But we can't, as real estate agents, have everything blocked out just like that. Sometimes it's really important to say, okay, but I'm not going to schedule anything between 2 and 4 because I know that something will pop up that I have to jump onto. So you've got to be intentional about the spontaneity as well to protect it.
What do you think, sir?
Well, like Bess, I like to walk.
Walking is the best.
I
in
walk
this town.
to and
It
from
really is.
my office every day. I walk to my closings. I don't like riding in the back of taxis or Ubers. It makes me
I don't
car
either.
sick.
Not any longer.
Me either.
And during bad weather, I'll take the subway, but usually I just walk.
We're foot
with
soldiers.
Great. We're foot
and I just like to
soldiers.
walk. And my day starts usually 11 o'clock the night before when some agent is, emailing me, what's up with my contract, what's up with my
What are you
deal.
doing, Peter? What are you doing?
I wanna go
it's
to
11
bed.
o'clock. Why are you still,
Yeah.
why are you sleeping? But
I'm in
day
bed
has
by
started.
I'm in
Right.
bed by 11 too.
no, but I'll tell you what actually works for me, and people are going to laugh when they see me say this on YouTube, but I like to take a nap.
I take naps too. I believe in the power of. I lived in Spain. There's nothing like a nap.
I take a short nap
Siesta.
every day, and it could be at the end of the day, and then my work continues.
But if you're in your office and you feel the urge to take a nap, do you close your door and say, don't bother me for a half an hour or whatever?
If I really feel the urge to do it, yes, that's what I'll do, and I can nap sitting up.
That's what I'm saying. I can do that too. I can take
eyes
10
open.
minutes and
Right.
just, So
It's
good.
just shut your mind off, close
feels
your
so
eyes.
good.
Remo-
Recharge.
remove that screen from your vision for 10,
it.
15
Well, that
minutes.
thing that's in front of you all day long is
it's,
annoying, right? It gets crazy.
It's
But recharging is the way to do that. And if it's a nap in the middle of the day, whether you're sitting, laying
Whatever
down,
it
standing,
is.
whatever you're doing, you're kind of resetting.
It helps. All of that. I mean, look, we all like to eat like some good snacks and ice cream and all. We all love that stuff, but also to try to, for the majority of the time, clean living, eating well and healthy, taking care of that also makes you feel better.
Yeah, of
when you
course.
eat a lot of junk or you're you go crazy with desserts during Thanksgiving, you're a little logy, you don't feel 100%. But to have a balance and be able to try to mostly do that, I think it makes you
to
feel
be
better.
honest,
The
I could
exercise is
improve on
important.
that.
You could so
I could improve on that.
I'm not a dessert eater.
we all
so that
have to work on that.
Well, when she
improvement.
said ice cream, I realized I totally fall into that.
Mint chip
I-
ice cream
I
from
live
from
near
Haagen-Dazs
some
is
of
my favorite. I
Oh,
love it. It's
wow.
my best. I take it little bowls of it and just eat a little bit and nibble on those chocolate pieces.
Baskin & Robbins mint chip is my favorite.
I've never had that.
Oh, it's the best.
This show brought to you
Hey,
by.
girl.
You learn
I'm
things
gonna
on
get some of
Talking
that.
New York Real Estate all
Yes.
the time, right? All right, we're going to take a quick break, come right back, and finish our conversation on keeping a positive mindset. Don't go anywhere. All right, we're coming back, everybody. Here we go.
Steakberry.
All right, so we talked about, walking in the city, which is a great thing with music on our ear. We talk about napping. We talk about, just structuring our day to make, the stress a lot less. But let's talk quickly about the current marketplace, okay? It's very stressful for agents. It's very stressful right now for sellers. It's even more stressful for buyers because at the end of the day, in just the last year, things have changed so significantly. Interest rates hit 8% when I think most of us thought probably 7 was going to be the ceiling, and then maybe things would start coming down. So even if we keep a very good mindset for ourselves, we have outside factors that make us tip sideways often. Okay, and right now we are in a situation where it's a very weird market.
It's a tough market. I mean, you should chat about that because you're out there doing the hustle every day. So.
Yeah, I think the one thing that everybody wants, Vince, and we've spoken about this in the past too, everybody wants certainty. And if you have certainty,
Oh, absolutely.
the problem is, guess what? That's the one thing that nobody gets.
Yeah.
At best, you can create the illusion of certainty. If I know exactly where interest rates are going to be for the next 3 years, that takes away the stress. Okay, I can plan accordingly. If I know exactly how much every home is going to be worth for the next 3 years, great. I'll know exactly what to buy. But we don't have that.
That's not reality.
It's not reality, and so there has to be uncertainty. By the way, news cycles are built on uncertainty. There's
Yeah.
there's no news, there's nothing if there's no uncertainty. So there's always uncertainty.
Drama.
What we have to do as agents, though, is to show up and to let our clients know, in spite of all of the uncertainty, we're here to help you map out and figure out the essence of what you really need.
Absolutely.
We'll figure out how to help you best accomplish it, and then we're not going to go away. After the transaction. That's why agents developing their reputations is really important. My clients will know that I'm not just going to go away. I really want to be around to hear how things are going and to help them through the questions and the problems and struggles and challenges that happen after the transaction. And so in light of the fact that there is no such thing as certainty, all we can do is at least provide comfort, commitment, confidence, and help them make sure that they're looking at all of the metrics and all of the news that really pertains to them, rather than just what they're sort of told they have to pay attention to.
Peter, what do you feel about that? Because I agree with what John just said. When your client calls you on the phone and says, oh my God, the world is falling down. What do I do? Should I sign this contract? I don't know what I'm doing. Help me.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's not difficult to understand what's going on, right? I mean, if you're enjoying a 3.5% interest rate for the apartment that you own, even if you're thinking of moving, unless you absolutely have to move for some particular reason, why are you going to want to trade that for a 7 or high 6 or 7 or 7.5% rate?
Yeah,
right.
You're not. It's going to keep you on the sideline. You're going to kind of wait to see what happens.
Right.
Next year is an election year. We're
gonna get to that.
I've heard prognosticators say, well, I think it's pretty clear that rates will come down significantly sometime next year. Why? Because Biden wants to maintain the White House, and so he'll make sure that rates come down, which will spur the economy. And I mean, nothing is an accident.
That simple.
I know it's not. I know it's not that simple.
It's not that simple and
Right.
really get credit for it. No.
Right. But what I'm saying is that I've been doing this long enough now to know that everything changes. There are cycles in this business. And if
Very.
you've been doing it for a long enough period of time, the agents just entering this market or who have only been in this market for a year or 2 or 3
love
years,
them.
they're likely freaking out along with the changes, the revenue changes, and what that will mean for them, because a lot of them start as buyers agents, and what's that going to mean?
Or not
But-
freaking out because they weren't used to anything happening in
Right.
a particular way. They're probably
Right.
asking us why is everybody freaking out? What's the big deal?
This is their
Yeah, but
norm.
if they jumped
Right.
in, during 2020 and 2021 or 2021 and 2022 when the market was at its, most, frenzied pace and everybody was making money and the market was great, they might be freaking out a little bit, like how am I going to pay? And so, this is a cyclical business. It goes with the economy. And we just have to ride it out, and that's what I tell my clients. This too shall pass.
But also,
I
the
was just
other
going to
thing-
say, this too shall pass. I'm a strong believer in that. I'm
But
sorry,
I would
Beth.
just also say to keep in mind that the market is there to serve you, not instruct you. It's there to, if you are moving, people will sell and buy based on their circumstances. If they lose a loved one, if they sell their mom's apartment, they're not going to go, oh, rates. They're going to do what serves their interest.
Right.
And you have to keep that in mind. I think the uncertainty thing is a big shaker.
Well, and you probably deal with this a lot because
Yeah.
you're helping so many people through this, through this whole industry. What's your take on this?
No, I think what you said about uncertainty is so true. And uncertainty leads to stress. And what is
Right.
stress? It's wanting the present moment to be something it isn't.
That's right.
That's what stress is.
Simply
Oh,
put.
yeah. So well said.
Right? That's
Right.
what stress is. Whenever we're like that, we feel that frazzle, it's because we want. And if you let go of that and say, okay, let me surrender and accept what is, and what I can control is myself
Right.
and how I'm going to work with my clients and what I'm going to talk to them about, and just let that be, you already feel better.
Yeah.
And so that's really all it is. This is a sea change environment, different vibe, but we've been through so much before. Post 9/11, the whole collapse of the mortgage industry, right? When that
2008, 09, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
we've been through a lot of different things. We will get through this, and there's always opportunity in crisis.
Oh, 100%. All right, so Bess, you are our fearless leader here at Brown Harris Stevens.
Yeah, fearless.
Fearless.
Yeah, okay.
Memorable.
Yeah, memorable.
I love you. Bottom line is, what do you think Brown Harris Stevens' responsibility to the community it serves is, and how can we be a better force for good in our society, in our local, New York markets, or global for that matter?
I think,
question.
Brown Harris Stevens is one of the few privately held real estate firms left with nearly 3,000 agents. And so what is really nice about what we do is that we make our own decisions, all the executives. It's sort of this meritocracy, which is nice. We don't have shareholders. And I think the culture that exists and lives here is about being professional and doing the right thing. And I think that the agents feel that, even in this environment today that we all know we're living in, which feels like, to me, earth-shaking. Like, I wake up and I go about my day and do what I do, but really I wake up and feel like I've gone to a funeral every day for the last month. I can't not say that.
Yeah.
What's going on in world events, I still can't wrap my head around the fact that people are ripping down posters of children that have been kidnapped. For what reason? It's unintelligible. How are you helping anybody by doing that? So I have to say that, we are very vocal about things that matter. I pen, as you know, I write to the agents about things. It's not political. I don't care who you vote for. You should vote for whoever you want. It's not that. It's about touching people's hearts and spirits
And what's
and
right
saying,
and wrong.
I see you, I understand, you're in pain, and I'm in pain with you. Because pain is universal. It doesn't
Right.
matter how much money you have. Pain is universal, and you can't not feel that today. So I feel like we are that operator, and I'm really proud of the group and how we operate and what we do every day. And I think we're a special sort of a firm.
I completely agree with that. So on that score, how critical is it for BHS to build a diverse and inclusive workforce within our company? Because that's a major topic
Of course we
conversation
are,
always.
but we are super diverse. We
are.
do have that. And I do think that you have to hire people based on merit. I want to hire the right people for the right job. If I'm looking for people and going, I need a woman. I got to get a woman because I need to check that box, then I'm part of the problem. We have to figure out ways to hire people for the job that makes sense. And hopefully there's diversity in there, that the people that you can hire that are from different backgrounds. But you shouldn't be looking for the different background to fill a hole. That is ass backwards, and that's not what we do. Not doing that.
There you have it.
There it is.
Peter, what about your firm?
Well, my firm is small, so I don't.
Well,
I'm not challenged with the same challenges that Bess is.
No, I agree,
I
but-
completely agree with Bess. See, like Bess, I wake up every morning with a sense of dread these days,
awful.
and it's hard to escape it. And you look at social media, and it's just nauseating, and it's very stressful, and it's hard to go through the day without that pit in your gut.
Exactly.
Well, as I said to John before the show, I have to turn the news off in the morning before I get my
You have
head
to you
straight.
have to try to give yourself a little bit of a break from it each day,
Yeah.
but it's very, very difficult, especially in a city like this city, which is so diverse and so political and so vocal.
Yeah.
But I also agree with Bess that merit is key. We hire people
Absolutely.
based on merit. But what I think a lot of people miss about the affirmative action thing and diversity is that no one is suggesting when they insist on diversity that you hire someone that is less qualified simply because of their race. That's not what affirmative action is. That's not what is being suggested anybody do.
That's right.
What they're saying is go the extra mile to look for the person who is equally qualified, who may be of a different race
That's
or
right.
religion.
That's right.
Okay? Go beyond the Harvards, the Yales, the Ivy Leagues. Go to the smaller communities. Go to the cities where those people aren't going to get a
Well
look.
said.
That's really well put.
Well
Okay,
said.
those
That's one of the
people
best
aren't going to
ways I've
get a
heard it,
look
isn't it?
because of where they are and who they are and the circumstance in which they grew up. So I think that was always the point of diversity inclusion. It wasn't give somebody something who deserves it less. It's put in the extra work and the extra time
But they weren't. But that's what we uncovered from these woke madrasas like Harvard were not doing. And that's why you had the lawsuit, because they were lazy. They had no intellectual
Correct.
rigor
It
in
was
their
easy to
application
say,
process. Zero.
Correct.
Zero. Now, guess what, guys? Do some work. You got $60 billion. You're not an educational institution. You're a hedge fund. Like, shut the fuck up. Sorry. You can take that part out.
No. That's perfectly right on. All right, so we got a few minutes.
We talk about.
I told you I love this.
I was told not to slam the table, but I really want to slam the table right now.
I look for her notes and I look
Slam
for her social
signaling.
media
There it
posts
is.
because I'm always like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Few minutes left. Okay, let's talk about
No, it's great. We want to hear it. This is lovely.
let's talk about the presidential upcoming year 2024 and the presidential year coming up. How agent, attorney, leader, how is this going to affect an already uncertain market that we've been in for the last, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years? What are we looking at in 20? I know it's $1 million question because I can't come up with an answer
I'm gonna
either.
let
You
you
know,
guys answer.
I really haven't a
Peter,
clue.
This is for you.
Every time I hear the next thing that pops up, to be very frank, in my meter of how important it really is, it's almost arbitrary. Like, yes, there's volatility that occurs, but because it's an election year, the truth is it will be volatile regardless of which way it goes.
Yeah.
It's volatile because it's the season. Oh, it's supposed to be volatile now. That's why. Does that mean that if you are relocating to New York City, you shouldn't move to New York City to take that job because it's an election year? So that's why. Yes, when I'm working with a client and we're right around that election time frame, I'll talk about it with them and I'll help them understand how it may or may not affect anything they're doing at all. But most of the time, it has very little effect other than just being a part of the topic of the day.
Right.
Like, it's just something that's on the news and people that talk about it. So does it have an effect? Yes, it sometimes does. So does selling your house in spring. Sometimes is a little different outcome than if you sell it in the fall. But does that mean that if you need to sell your home at a certain time of year, you should? No, I mean, we look at all of this stuff and we help you figure out how to make those decisions. But at the end of the day, it's not. It doesn't really shake the world too much for me.
Yeah, I think there's always two sides of that story because some people say, oh, it's an election year coming up and it's going to be a terrible market next year. And then others say, as you just said, hey, you're always going to get that fanatic out there who, is going to, create stress and craziness in their own world. But if you have to move, you have to move. Right. And I think it's more about, what the state of the interest rates are going to be and maybe Peter's correct, in the mid next year time frame when we get closer to the election, maybe the rates will start coming down and maybe that incents people to start buying again. And then all of a sudden, the presidential election year concept goes out the window because now I have to catch this market right now before it changes.
And also, what I have found is that we work in a marketplace that tends to buck the trend. What might be true of the nation is very rarely true of this
You're
city.
right.
Proven.
And so, we'll just have to wait and see.
Just like Bess likes to walk on the streets with music in her ear, as do I. It's like because you can only do that in New York City, right?
I mean, you can do it in other cities, but there's
Well,
something
there's
about
nothing
But
like
what
the
are you
vibe
seeing?
here.
But what are you seeing in other
people
places?
the people you see, the interactions, just the vibe. It's like it's just hot.
It has an energy.
It's just hot.
There's just an energy
the energy,
here.
it's
yeah.
invisible. It's
Yeah.
just
Agreed.
Yeah,
You create
bring
this
it.
solitude in public where you are in other cities, you're driving in your car and you can see people, but here you're creating that solitude in this space where you're literally brushing shoulders with
That's
and against
right.
other people.
100%.
And you're in it. You're in the mesh
Foot
of all of
soldiers.
this stuff. And
So
yet you're
love
okay
that.
with it.
Yeah.
And that's what's beautiful.
It's not for everyone.
It's creating the
Not for
negative
everybody.
space.
But that's
so that
okay.
you
We
can,
don't need everybody.
think- yeah, that's
No,
right.
but you can think through a lot of stuff. It's almost like therapy for me in a way. I walked this
Yep.
morning here to work. I love it.
Yeah. All right, last question, and I wrote this for you. If I say Scott Galloway, what would you say?
I would say cultural icon. I love him. I listen to his.
I love him too.
Pivot.
I just think he's irreverent. He's smart. He's what this today in present time we need to hear. He speaks the truth from the heart, and I admire him greatly.
And he's so natural, and I don't think
Funny as hell too. by the way.
he's very funny, very dry, but I don't think we see enough of him on the
He's
big
tried
screen.
to do some TV stuff. It just hasn't worked. He talks about that a lot. He's a nice. I've emailed with him. We have exchanged emails. He's just really the right message for today, and I would love to get him more exposure because he's fantastic.
Well, that was my thought. I think he needs a lot more exposure because he is fantastic.
He is.
He's very relevant. He's got a lot to say.
Podcast
He's
is
smart.
so good. He's,
It is.
Yeah. Good
He
guy.
is a very smart guy.
Do you guys listen to him?
I do listen to him. There are very few people that I listen to. He is one of them. Sam Harris is another.
Sam is my guy.
Oh, Sam
I
is
love
great.
Sam.
Yeah,
He's
I mean,
really
he's brilliant.
Perhaps one of the. I wait when his last podcast just came out
Yeah.
Saturday. I just listen to everything. He's so smart. I listen to it over and over.
Yeah.
Send
They're
it
so,
out.
they're so
He's
smart.
brilliant.
They're so
I
smart.
agree.
Human being.
I completely agree.
I love him. But
Well, those two guys, they are who they are. They're amazing
They
and
are.
wonderful. All right, we're going to come back with my thoughts of the day. That's it. We'll be right back. Okay, everybody, we're back. My thoughts for this week. So, keeping a positive mindset when facing tough situations is essential for maintaining your overall well-being and resilience. A few thoughts on how to cultivate a positive mindset. Focus first on the positive aspects of your life and express gratitude for them. Surround yourself with supportive and positive people who uplift you. Engage in activities that bring you joy and help you maintain a good outlook. When faced with challenges, identify negative thoughts that may arise and consciously replace them with positive or realistic ones. Prioritize self-care activities such as getting enough sleep, eating well, exercising, and engaging in all activities that help you relax and rejuvenate. Break down your challenges into smaller, manageable goals and create each milestone achieved. Instead of dwelling on failures or setbacks, view them as opportunities for growth and learning. Remember, maintaining a positive mindset is a continual process. It requires patience, self-compassion, and persistence. And that's our broadcast for today. Thanks for listening, and thanks to my guests, Bess, Peter, and John, for being here on set with me. You can follow me on Facebook, on Threads, Instagram, or TikTok at Vince Rocco, or my website, thinkvince.com. Oprah Winfrey says, if you look at what you have in life, you'll always have more. But if you look at what you don't have in life, you'll never have enough. And to my listeners all around the world, from all of us at Talking New York Real Estate, thanks again for spending a part of your day with us, and I will see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.